call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, May 1st, 2019 at 9 a.m. Mr. Winowski, Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Shaw, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
This morning, Mr. President, I'd ask, as always, that we remember those who are less fortunate in our community, locally and globally, than we are. Ask that we remember those who have lost loved ones since the last time we were in these chambers. Finally, I ask that we ask our God and Creator to give us the wisdom and the right information to make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie.
Mr. President, I'd also like to everybody to remember Mark I. Finley, a fellow veteran and a longtime advocate and involved person with the media. He passed away recently.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from the City Council meeting of Wednesday, April 17th, 2019, and bills for payment on April 26th and May 3rd, 2019. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Shaw, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski.
Do we have anybody here this morning for repository sales? Please step forward, thank you.
Morning, Council. My name is Dennis Jones. I am a self-contractor, independent contractor. Maybe 2 years ago. Since then, I have
Thank you.
rehabbed 8 to 10 properties. I lose count. They are all in good standings, no code violations. My job is to beautify, and my goal is to help unblight Erie. And I ask the council for an opportunity to receive another property to do the same.
Ms. Allen?
Okay, and what are you going to do with this particular property?
I actually plan to start a nonprofit to educate young males to help be more handy.
Okay.
So hopefully the end result is multiple people helping to unblight Erie.
Okay, and then do you have an estimated cost for the plans to rehab this particular property? And
I actually haven't seen it yet,
oh, okay.
but the funds is not a problem.
And where is it, the one that you're talking about?
It's actually in a like high-rise building. They have association dues. It's a multi.
Oh, is that the one on Peach Street
It's
that
a
you have
multi-
like, it's like a condo?
Yes,
thing or
ma'am.
something.
So
Okay.
it can't be in bad shape.
Okay, and so you're going to use that as the learning place or as the, or more administrative for the,
Classroom.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of discussion in different quarters about how to get more young people into the building trades. So maybe you could give us a tour of it and let us know what kind of outreach you need in terms of getting people into the program. And
That is my goal. I can't think of the name of it, but the nonprofit organization, they help train people to. I'm horrible with microphones. I actually, I have a church and my wife's a pastor, but I can't get on the microphone. But that is my goal.
Okay. And do you have a deadline when you would like to get this unit rehabbed and everything? Do you have a deadline in mind for when you want to get things up and going?
My goal was made by the end of May, but I know that might not happen, but this year for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
And we just, at the suggestion of somebody from the Blighted Property Review Committee, we are asking people when they come up for repository sales, asking everybody the same question, so.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I've been here 3 or 4 times.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other council? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tim Schlumps. I live at 2627 Oakwood Street, and my wife and I would like to purchase the now vacant property at 2018 Cascade Street. And we just plan to leave it green space. It will be maintained. The grass will be replanted. All the brush will be removed, and it'll just be one large lot. We own the property next door, and it's been an eyesore for as long as we've had the property next door. And it's finally been, the building's been removed, and we would just like to buy the land, and it will be maintained, snow blowed the driveway, and the grass will be cut.
And I think we get pictures of all the properties, so I'm not sure if that was the one. It looked like one of the properties we had that was vacant, there was a lot of stuff on it, but was that yours, or the
Well,
one that you're gonna get?
It
or-
was up until a few months ago, there was a large flat duplex there that hadn't been lived in years. It was an absolute disaster. And it was on fire a few times. The city finally came in and tore it down. So right now it's just a vacant lot. It's pretty open. I mean, there's still some debris, and in the back, there's an alley there. In the back there's a lot of brush and stuff that just didn't get removed. I had to remove all that and just basically beautify it. It's no longer gonna be an eyesore.
Okay, and so there's no major cost to get stuff off the property that was left behind? So I think they do a pretty good job when they
Oh,
demolish.
no, they actually did, there's very little debris. This is just some brush that's along a fence line and stuff they wouldn't be able to get at. It's basically, cost-wise, it's basically elbow grease, to be honest with you. It's a lot of work for me, but there isn't really a lot of cash.
Thank you.
What was that address again, sir?
2018 Cascade Street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, council?
All set? Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, there's somebody else coming up.
Yes. Hi, good morning. Sorry about that.
Good morning. My name is Kara Thompson. I'm a nurse that I was looking to buy the two properties to create an income revenue for myself.
What are the addresses of those properties, ma'am?
One's on Carter Street. That's the only address they had on there, just at Carter Street, and then 24th and I believe it's Wayne.
And you said you're gonna use one of them for yourself, did you say, one of the properties, or?
I'm going to fix them up and rent them out
Okay.
for income revenue.
And do you have an estimated cost for your plans?
I didn't get to see the inside yet.
And have you done this before, though? Have you done any?
I've done it with my brother.
And even though you don't have an estimated cost yet, do you have a deadline or like a timeline to complete your
Yes,
rehabilitation?
I would love to have them done by this year, where they could be rented out.
Okay, can you please go see the girls in the office there to give her your information?
Yes.
And I think before we have these repository people come, we need exact addresses. I mean, it would help the cause to know
Yes.
exactly where the property are that
Okay.
residents are looking to purchase. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other repository sales this morning? Any other repository sales? Hearing none, that brings us to citizens to be heard.
Good morning. Tom Stashewski, 150 East 36th Street. I'm delighted to see that city government officials are once again pursuing the challenge of the property tax exemptions for those two corporate giant hotels, the Sheraton and the Bayfront, that embrace most of our beloved scenic views on the Bayfront. So kudos to whoever decided to again challenge that. I believe that's great. Your ambition, your desire to have that revisited should be applauded. And I also am pleased to see the school district is joining along with city government to further pursue that unfair tax exemption, in my opinion, as a citizen. I've been studying that issue for a number of years now, and as I recall, when that convention center was being constructed and when the Sheraton opened in 2008, that long ago already, we haven't collected a nickel yet, a penny, yet they're expecting all these very valuable and very costly city services. I really didn't realize what was going on until I see Kevin Flowers from the Erie Times News attends most of these meetings and writes on them the next day, which is a good way of keeping us citizens informed. But I recall to this day seeing a surprise back in December of 2016 when Kevin wrote an excellent article on 12/14/16 to be exact, revealing, I believe, for the first time that there should have been $1.7 million in real estate taxes collected from those two hotels. And even to this day, as recently as this morning, on social media, Facebook, whatever the case might be, discussions on the street, people are still wondering, why are those exemptions in place? Technically, as I know, the best I can tell, it's the convention center laws in Harrisburg that say hotels connected to convention centers allow them to be tax exempt. That Skywalk, that's a far stretch of a connected hotel, in my opinion. That corridor by the Marriott, that too is a far stretch of a connection to any convention center. So way to go on your challenge to question the usage of those hotels, the usage of the convention center. From what I can tell, I don't see much of any conventions going on there. I don't see many out-of-town people coming here. I don't have the facts. I know you're trying to get the facts, which seem to be quite guarded right now. But all I really see, in my opinion, going there and reading and being aware as a citizen, what I see are events and venues that were elsewhere around Erie County, that were at Rainbow Gardens, that were at the Mill Creek Mall, that were at Nick Scott's other location, the Ambassador. I see events at that convention center that are now housing events that used to be at those other places, which are denying those tax-paying people the revenue. As recently as 8:20 this morning, FYI, on Jet Radio, 1400 AM, one of the state legislators calls in once a month, and someone asked him, "What's your opinion about those tax exemptions?" He said, frankly, you can look up the transcript yourself, he said, "Those are not charities. The Marriott and the Sheraton are not charities. They're not clothing the needy. They're not giving free meals to the poor. They're not housing homeless people." And even that same legislator I heard on the radio this morning, I was in attendance at a state legislative luncheon back on February 22nd, if anybody's into fact checking. And on February 22nd, that same legislator said, he's opposed to those tax exemptions because they're not housing the homeless, they're not feeding the poor, they're not giving away free meals, it's not a charity. So if the court system fails, if the judge, whoever he or she is, I don't know yet, does not rule in our favor, let's lobby the state legislators. You have a current legislator that used to sit there, he knows the dismal, dire need of our city revenues. Let's petition, let's lobby, let's work with those state legislators, and as that same legislator said this morning, state laws can be changed. State laws can be revised. What we have on the Bayfront now is pretty much wasted. I've been getting a number of mailings about 5 cruise ship companies that go everywhere but Erie. Back in 2002, who built the vacant cruise ship terminal that's been sitting there with no cruises? 2002. I got this just yesterday, Victory Cruise Lines. It's an embarrassment to see this detailed itinerary throughout May, June, July, August, September. It starts in Detroit, goes to Cleveland, spends the night there, goes also to Buffalo and Niagara. We should be on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Adam Trott, 531 West Sixth Street, floor 2. A couple of things I wanted to touch base on this morning. One is, last meeting, you were approving money for some safety features for some of the city schools. And what I didn't see is validation that that money came from the $1 million grant that the Senate administration applied for, and it came in early in the Schember administration. I wondered if that was some application of that money. If it was, I would like us to celebrate that. That's us doing great things. I think this summer we'll be seeing some bike lane work on the Bayfront Broken Link, as we call it, at State Street as part of the $250,000 grant that Erie got last year. Again, from Senate administration handed down to Schember. So I'd like to get clarification on whether that is how that money's being spent. If it is, let's celebrate it. That's what we should be doing here. The main topic I'm here for is regarding the Bayfront Parkway planning. I'm sure everybody has heard the discussion about the 1950s Robert Moses planning throughout the U.S. of putting highways through cities and along waterfronts and everything. And the intention was good, but the consequence was horrible. It fractured communities and it cut off communities from their water asset. And here we are in Erie, 60-some years later, looking to do the same thing. Well, I can tell you, as early as 1974, Portland was the first city to really start pushing back on this. And they took down State Route 99. Well, they didn't completely take it down. They diminished it from a 6-lane highway down to a more pedestrian-friendly highway, roadway, I would call it, parkway. Right now, in the city, that 2-lane parkway is as much as many of us believe the city infrastructure can handle in trying to connect the downtown to the Bayfront. After 74, in 91, San Francisco took advantage of earthquake damage to SR 480, and instead of repairing, they took the highway down because it was fracturing two parts of the community from each other. And then the speed starts to pick up on this. 2001, an earthquake hit the Alaskan Way in Seattle, and it took a long time, but Seattle is finally taking down the Alaskan Way. In 2002, Milwaukee, under Mayor John Norquist, took down Route 794 called the Park East Freeway, and it's been lauded worldwide as an amazing gift back to the city to stitch the city together to its waterfront. In 2005, the biggest one of all, Boston, $15 billion to sink I-93 to stitch the city back to its waterfront. And now we have Austin with I-85, Buffalo with the Kensington and Scajaquada expressways, Dallas with the I-345, Denver with the I-70, Louisville with the I-64, New Orleans with the I-10, Oakland with the I-980, Rochester with the I-345, the Inner East Loop, Syracuse with I-81, Tampa with I-275. They're all getting the highways off the city surface and stitching their community back together. There's no question our biggest asset is the Bayfront. And I call it the black hole, that part of State Street, where you go from like 3rd and State down to where you hit the water on either side. That's the black hole that prevents the city from being completely connected to our best asset, the waterfront. So I'm asking, please step in, defend who lives in the city over entertaining the privileges of those who live outside of the city and tourists. If you build a city that is stitched together and functions really well as a community, people will come, and they don't care if it takes an extra 10 minutes to get in here. They will come. So if we can start pushing back on things that split the city for those out of town and build more for those who have invested in living in this city, I think the rewards will be unbelievable. And you can look at any of those examples I cited that have been done, and they've all been lauded as amazing actions that put the city back together. So, please look into that, and from Bike Erie, I can tell you the roundabouts PennDOT are suggesting are horrible for bikes and pedestrians. PennDOT does not know how to do a roundabout for bikes and pedestrians because they don't exist. Europe's as close as you can get to that. So please, let's step in and really have this debate. Don't just leave it to PennDOT. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. My name is Randy Barnes. I live at 109 Walton Point, Erie, Pennsylvania. While I don't currently own property in Erie, I have friends and relatives and close family members that do, and they're seeing their property values decline like crazy. I want to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the city here for about the past 7 or 8 years. We've been financing the city with bonds. If you look at the 2017 CAFR, big report, 100 and some pages, and it talks about bonds. And at the end of the bonds, there's 2 categories. One category says proprietary fund. Those are for investments in sewer and the golf course and things. And then there's a category that says general fund. Those are things that we can use that money for to kind of run the city, general fund. Well, under general fund, there was, in 2017, there had been $82 million taken out for the general fund to help run the city. 12 million for important stuff like sewer and stuff we can actually physically see 10 or 20 years from now. So what happened in 2015? We refinanced some bonds and we took out an extra 8 million. And because of the refinancing, we ended up with 11 million. You can play along with this. In 2015, we ended up with $11 million. Well, that lasted 2 years. That lasted in 15 and 16, 5 million each year. So in 17, guess what council did? And many of you voted for it that were on council. You voted yes. $10 million more bond to finance the city so we can give at-will employees the raises. So that was 10 million in 17. Well, that lasted in 17, 18, 5 million a year. So right now we're running a deficit of 5 million a year plus the interest, okay? So what happens in 19? All of you, most of you, the majority of you obviously, voted for a budget that said, we're gonna borrow more money to fund the city to run it next year, and we're gonna give at-will employees raises, because we're gonna borrow money enough to give them raises and run the city. So in 2019, just a month or two ago, I think the majority of you voted for a 16 million additional money, borrowing another $16 million because of mismanagement of the city. What else excuse is there? But you voted to borrow $16 million, and you know why you did? Because you need 5 this year, you need 5 next year, you need 5 another year. And you know what that gets us? That gets us up to the next mayoral election. Council's got it made for the next 3 years. You don't have to work that hard to balance this budget, because you just borrowed enough money to get to the next mayoral election and get the mayor elected. Let's play along with the home game. How many people were in the mayor's office in 2017? Do you know? 4. 4 for you that can count, because I'm not so sure anybody on council can count when they keep taking out bonds. Okay, 2017, 4 people. 2019, how many people in the mayor's office? You know? Liz, don't leave now. I want you to play along. 8. 8 people in the mayor's office. 8 people. How much did it cost to run the mayor's office in 2017? According to the budget, how much did it cost? $261,000. 2 years ago, $261,000 cost to run the mayor's office. How much does it cost to run the mayor's office this year? You got twice as many people. Costs twice as much. That's pretty easy math, isn't it? $511,000 in 2 years. What has the mayor's office done in 2 years? People are still voting with their feet. They're leaving. Well, let's talk about not the mayor, because there is $30,000 that he's not responsible for that was council voted the raise to. Let's talk about the second person, the second highest pay in the mayor's office in 2017. You remember the person who used to have it? Jill? She was paid $78,000. 2 years later, we not only doubled the staff in the mayor's office, we increased that next highest pay. That person that used to make $78,000, that position now is worth 11% more. You voted for bonds so you could give that person 11% raise. What are you smiling about, Liz? It's true, isn't it? I can't make this up. It's black and white. And she's smiling. And Kaz has got his head
Please,
down.
please.
Yeah,
As a
I know.
board, please, that's-
I know, I got 20 seconds left. I know, we can't pick out people that we've elected that pee our money away. And keep
Are we
going.
allowed to use language like PR money away?
I apologize. I apologize. I'm not sure that is one of those 7 nasty words that George Carlin said he couldn't say. Finally got a reaction out of you, huh, Liz? You like voting for those bonds?
Any other citizens to be heard this morning?
Could we make that any other citizens of the city of Erie to be heard?
Any other citizens to be heard this morning, please? Hearing none? Nope. Good morning.
I honestly didn't pray yet, so I'm gonna pray. Lord, help me.
Can I bother you for your name and number, please? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. My name is Rashima Lester. And what else do you need?
Your address.
Oh, 536 East 27th Street. Praise God. Okay.
Thank
I just want to say thank you so much for having an opportunity to speak today. I had wanted to just thank the city council. I'm not here to complain. If I'm supposed to complain, tell me. No. I'm sorry. This is my first
Thank
time.
you.
Okay. Praise God. I want to say that I appreciate the city for helping me to say to my dad, who's been a resident, I don't want to say resident, I worked at the nursing home so long, so you have to excuse me, for being a citizen of Erie. My dad has been here all my life, and if I want to move out of Erie because I'm angry, he says, why are you leaving here? This is a great city. You don't need to leave here. But to get long story short, he's put a lot of time and effort into Erie. He's had unisex hairstyles he owned since I was little. He's also done a lot of things for the Elks Club, etc. I'm just going down the line. But I recently had put in for my father to have a proclamation through the city, the mayor's office. And I wrote it up myself. And I was told that they would call you if they wanted to reword what you wrote. And I was just like, okay, so I didn't get a chance to put my sister's names on it. We're having him a 70th birthday party coming up. And I put my name, but I didn't put their name in the proclamation. And I did say my sisters or whatever, our family and my dad. I don't know what to do. I don't think they'll be upset with me because I did include all of us in it, but I didn't put their name on the proclamation. And asked what the cause was, and I put Rashima Lester, my name.
Excuse me.
We can fix that for you.
You know,
It's not a problem.
I appreciate that
It's not a
because
problem.
we're all throwing him this 70th birthday party, and I thought I would get a call, and I thought they would tell me how to word their name.
I hope he isn't watching this morning.
I don't know. I'm just, I know, right?
All good.
I know, right?
All good.
So I was like, well, I'll take a chance, but I didn't want to mess up the proclamation because it was done. So that was my positive
All
note
good.
for today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Any other citizens to be heard this morning? Any other citizens to be heard? Hearing none. Rose, you can move on, please.
Ordinances for final passage, council file number 16089, official ordinance number 29/2018, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $18,147 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue received from our West Bayfront Neighborhood Group and providing for the expenditure thereof for the Bayview Park Improvement Project. By Mr. Witherspoon, second by Mrs. Schaaf, the council file ordinance bill number 16089, and now known as official file ordinance number 29/2019, be finally passed by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council passed official file ordinance number 29/2019, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 16090, official ordinance number 30/2019. An ordinance amending Article 204, Section 204.14, Article 205, Article 305, Sections 305.24, 305.25, and 305.44, and Article 6 to allow eating and drinking establishments and limited retail business to be located in the RLB district. By Mr. Kwiatkowski, second by Mr. Jones, that council file ordinance bill number 16090, and now known as official file ordinance number 30/2019, be finally passed by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Ms. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council passed official file ordinance number 30/2019, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file 16091, official ordinance number 31/2019. An ordinance amending official ordinance number 80/2005, known as the zoning ordinance of the city of Erie, by changing the classification of the property located at the southwest corner of West 5th and Cranberry Street from R3 High Density Residential to RLB Residential Limited Business as amended. By Mr. Kwiatkowski and seconded by Mr. Jones, that council file ordinance bill number 16091, and now known as official file ordinance number 31/2019, be finally passed by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council passed official file ordinance number 31/2019, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council file 16092, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $2,253,301 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof from bond proceeds. By Mr. Jones, seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski, the council file ordinance number 16092, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16092 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 16093, an ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the city of Erie, Part 5 Traffic, Title 5 Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Article 527 Impounding of Vehicles, by amending Articles 527.03 Garage Post Bond and Article 527.04 Towing and Storage Fees, to provide that the applicable bond, towing, and storage fees apply to vehicles which are stored as well as impounded under the authority of Articles 527.03 and 527.04. By Ms. Allen, second by Mrs. Arrington, the council file ordinance number 16093, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16093 by yeas 7, Nays 0 on first reading.
It's right here.
We do have one item under old business and then new business.
Means it's old business.
The old business is the vote on the transfer of the liquor license. Or you can move the balance. It's up to you.
Want to move the balance?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move the balance of the agenda.
President, I'll second it.
Is there any separations?
I'd like to separate number 6 under new business.
Number 1 under new business, Rose? I think I'll go number 8 under new business also, Rose.
Okay. All right, moving the balance of the agenda. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Potowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Lenars. By Mr. Winarski, second by Mr. Witherspoon, resolution in support of Restore Pennsylvania, a $4.5 billion infrastructure improvement plan. Whereas Pennsylvania must position its communities for success and position itself as a leader in the 21st century by investing in critical infrastructure needs that for too long have been neglected. Whereas to help a better future for all Pennsylvanians, Restore Pennsylvania will invest $4.5 billion over the next 4 years in significant high-impact projects throughout the Commonwealth to help catapult Pennsylvania ahead of every state in the country in terms of technology development and infrastructure. Whereas Restore Pennsylvania will provide funding to bridge the digital divide, supporting the installation of infrastructure to bring high-speed internet to communities across the Commonwealth and making Pennsylvania a better place to work, do business, and live. Whereas Restore Pennsylvania will provide funding to assist individuals who suffer severe weather-related losses and funding to help communities prepare for flooding and severe weather, upgrade flood walls and levees, replace high-hazard dams, and conduct stream restoration and maintenance. Whereas Restore Pennsylvania will address blight by providing financial resources to local communities to establish land banks and acquire and demolish blighted buildings in order to create new development opportunities or provide new green space. Whereas Restore Pennsylvania will fund expanded efforts to improve lead and other contaminants from communities. Whereas Restore Pennsylvania will enable new environmental projects and new recreational opportunities across the Commonwealth, including infrastructure and maintenance in state parks, local water quality improvements on farms, and funding for new hiking, biking, and trail projects. Whereas Restore Pennsylvania will help to build manufacturing facilities and other downstream businesses while helping businesses and individuals use more of Pennsylvania's natural gas in their homes, creating jobs, lowering costs, and improving energy efficiency. Whereas Restore Pennsylvania will provide funding for local road and bridge upgrades, create new flexible funding options for businesses that need local infrastructure upgrades to enable development projects and multimodal and large-scale capital projects for transit. Whereas Restore Pennsylvania projects will be driven by input about local needs, and projects will be evaluated through a competitive process to ensure that high-priority, high-impact projects are funded and needs across Pennsylvania are met. Now therefore be it resolved that the Erie City Council hereby urges the Pennsylvania General Assembly to support Restore Pennsylvania. Discussion?
Yes, we have Julie Slomsky from the governor's office actually here in the audience today, and I think she would be the best salesperson for this. So if she would mind coming up and breaking it down just a little bit for us. So as the question will be, where are we going to get $4.5 billion?
Thank you, Mr. President. The $4.5 billion will come from the Marcellus shale gas tax, a common sense, severance tax that we're hoping to implement. And it's in the packet, of course, that I provided to you with all the details there. So we're looking to invest that $4.5 billion over the next 4 years to focus on anything from blight, brownfields, contamination site restoration, flood mitigation, and stormwater, what have you, and major transportation projects as well. So again, our goal as administration is to find those projects, larger impact projects, and bring some funds back, here, of course, to Erie as a whole. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
Not a question, I just wanted to point out that I think one of the interesting things about this proposal is that it really does address a lot of needs across Pennsylvania, including the need for high-speed internet. That's something which we know that after you get to a certain part, even I think maybe in Erie County, you may be discouraging businesses or home-based businesses from locating there because of that component. So there's something here that addresses there's stormwater management, so blight remediation, brownfield recovery. So there's something for urban areas, there's something for suburban areas, and there's something for rural areas. And I like the way it's cast as investment. So I think it's very needed, and I thank Julie Slomsky for bringing it to our attention, and Jim for sponsoring this, because when we speak as one voice, we have impact.
Thank you.
And that's the most important thing, Councilwoman, like you said, is speaking as one voice. And Secretary Davin, as he's mentioned over and over, when you did see him in his last visit, that's the key. And Erie has been speaking as one voice between the county and the city. And of course, we've been able to reap the benefits of that. So thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Just in relation to the importance of this, I think the one voice, all of those things matter very philosophically and tangibly, but I think it's really important that we understand that there's an opportunity because of our antiquated and deficient infrastructure under the streets. There are a lot of things that this is a nice, this moving forward would be a great opportunity for us to reap the benefits of in the future, the inevitable future of us having to do some infrastructure, hard brick and mortar building improvement or building and city improvement that we won't have the general fund money for or grant money for, but to partner with the state and to be able to support this as a city, as a county, is supporting ourselves as well as the rest of the Commonwealth. And I'm just excited about the opportunities. I'm kind of looking beyond like all the approval. I'm looking at, oh my God, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, as a young council member, they were talking about the erosion of what's going on and small fixes under the streets and piping and all. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to support something that will inevitably support ourselves as well as the rest of the Commonwealth. So thank you again, and Julie in the governor's office.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Julie, the only thing that severance tax, I don't think people in Erie or maybe even in the state as a whole realize that this natural gas hasn't been taxed, or we are.
And you're exactly right. People get that confused and say, I'm going to go to the pump and pay more. Of course not. I mean, this comes down to us being the largest producer and not having a tax. I mean, I'm sorry, second largest in the nation, but the largest around here and not having a tax. So in turn, we're not reaping any benefits from it. Folks are coming in from Texas and other states, drilling, damaging our roads in other parts of the Commonwealth, and in turn, we're reaping no benefits there. So we're long overdue for this severance tax. It's so important to us to be able to find a way to fund some opportunities like we discussed, that we have some issues and holes to finally be able to move the Commonwealth forward. So it's long overdue, and we're hoping with your endorsement, we'll be able to help our legislators understand the importance of this issue.
Good. Anyone else? Thank you,
Very good.
Joel.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Ms. Potowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski, and that resolution will adopt 7-0. By Mr. Witherspoon, second by Ms. Schaaf. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the proper city officials be and are hereby authorized and directed to execute an easement agreement between the City of Erie and Straw Hat Ice Cream Shop, tenant of 34 North Park Road, Erie, for installation of a 32-foot-long temporary dining area that will protrude 6 feet into the public right-of-way on the north side of North Park Road between Peach and State Streets in compliance with the city engineer's meets and bounds. Discussion?
Mr. President, I won't take as long as I have taken on this topic. I think I've kind of articulated it extremely well, even if I say so myself. No, but seriously, I just want to raise attention, and I will be voting no for this, not because I am against business in general or this particular business. As a matter of fact, in some of my other community work, I'm very much a strong supporter of this business, ironically. So this is not personal, but this is principle for me. And I think that we have to stop giving away the few resources we still have to manage in ways of generating revenue, and in a time when we're looking at everything being on the table, we're continuing to give away quite a bit. And so to me, this is one of those instances again where we are giving a wonderful business the opportunity to expand their business, which is wonderful, but there's usually a cost that comes along with that. And we're giving 32 feet by 6 feet of city right-of-way for a for-profit money-making or business, which is what they're supposed to do. And I will probably patronize the place and probably sit on a 32 by 6 foot at some point this summer. But the point is, I think that there should be a cost, and we as a city couldn't recoup something from this type of use of our city's right away, and we continue to kind of give it away. We continue to give it away for free. So in our next meeting, I've spoken with the women in the clerk's office, and I would like to have on the agenda a resolution asking the solicitor's office to look into what it would take, and we're not sure of the exact wording, but how we can assess a fee if it's partnering with Dave Rocco's office and making it somehow connected to vendors license. I don't know what that looks like, but that will be a request coming soon on the agenda. And I'm very, very appreciative that it won't fall into the black abyss, the black hole that it previously fell into when we asked for this question to be answered about 5 or 6 years ago. So voting no on principle, even though I'm a very big supporter of Straw Hat, and but I think this is another example for us to be able to say this is where we can recoup revenue for our city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I agree with Mr. Jones. I'm going to convene my committee. This week, I'm going to call them all personally, and I think it's time we address a lot more than just the easements, Councilman. It's bothered me for a long time that I'm driving around town now. I'm seeing dumpsters blocking parking spaces, occupying city streets, occupying city sidewalks. We need to look at, I think, all these things, not as a revenue generator, but, we need to look at them to control. I'm concerned also, and I don't know if there's any remaining ones, but for a long time we have people like this business who's doing it the right way, who's gonna indemnify the city on the insurance plan. But when I was in the controller's office and I did a brief survey, over half of the people that were availing themselves of the easements were doing so illegally. And I'm sure the solicitor has a copy of those that we have presently. And if you compare them with a brief walk down State Street, you can see that there are many merchants that don't even go about and do that. So I'm gonna say this, that puts the city at risk if anything happens. You know, unruly action, brick falling off the building, anything going wrong there, and we okayed it. So I think we need to look at this. I've talked to Dave Rocco as well as Mr. Jones. I think it's a long time we look at this, but I'd like to look at a couple other things too. Since we're gonna keep the solicitor occupied, you might as well give him a wide plethora of things to look at. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon.
Ms.
You missed me.
I'm
I
sorry,
am voting no.
Curtis, I missed
That's
you.
all right.
You're a no. I
I'm a
gotcha.
voting no, yeah.
I got ya. Okay, so this, resolution will adopt 6-1. By Ms. Allen, second by Mrs. Arrington. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the proper city officials are hereby authorized to settle the claims of Linda M. Chisholm for the injuries she sustained in a fall which occurred on North Park Row on August 20th, 2015. The parties have agreed to settle the lawsuit filed in the Court of Common Pleas in the amount of $6,000. Discussion?
Once again, I separated this claim, or this resolution, only because we had one prior, a couple weeks ago. Although we don't know the total ins and outs of the whole situation there the night of, and we weren't part of the legal process, which, yes, we do have to trust our solicitor in what his feeling is or his suggestion is on some of these. It still goes back to feeling we're setting the wrong precedent to just agree to give some money out for somebody who had an accident. I don't know if all the details that were involved, but it's just another $6,000 out of the coffers that I just don't want to become a common practice of people walking in the city of Erie. And so with that, I'm voting no.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I like to support you in that endeavor. As a young man, when I worked for one of the authorities, I seen firsthand what happens when this starts to take hold and it becomes a well-known fact, and pretty soon we got claims all over the place. I've agreed, I've talked to the solicitor, I'm going to make some comments to the administration, which I think some suggestions we need to look at, but I too am fearful about, what's going on. That, we're having all these issues, and so I'm not comfortable. I'm gonna vote no on this one.
Rose?
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski,
No, I'm sorry.
Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski.
No.
This resolution will adopt 5-2. That'll take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Sure, how about Ms. Allen?
Okay. I'm going to start by saying I didn't realize that just getting up and going to the bathroom and then coming back and smiling could engage one of the non-City of Erie residents who comes up here every week, but I have to learn to smile more when I come back.
Yes, you do.
I mean, I will point out that I've seen a lot of my city council colleagues occasionally have to leave to go to the bathroom. That's the first time I had to do it, but it was this tea that I was drinking. Anyhow, so that's not really a committee report, but and some of these are going to overlap, I think, with some of the things that Kathy Schaaf and I have been at, and also Kaz. So Kathy and I don't know if any other council members were at the presentation sponsored by Erie Arts and Culture about placemaking and learning about how there's going to be a lot of engagement in, I believe it's four zip codes in the city of Erie, to find out what their iconic assets are and how you celebrate those. So that was really good. There was an outside speaker whose name I can't remember. I'm hoping Kathy will remember, who came in and talked a lot about how to really instill pride in your city. And actually, based on one of his suggestions, he spent the day going around Erie, and he went up and took a picture at the Bicentennial Tower, and looked down on the whatever the deck is there, you know, what we used to know as the public dock, and said that that was an opportunity to have some type of mural be put there, and then actually, and pair it with some type of event. And I believe that the Port Authority is going to follow up on that. It was just really cool. You can bring in an artist, have them do something there, and there's going to be some kind of event to take advantage of that. Kathy and I and Kaz were all at the, was it called a focus group for the Erie History Center? Was that like a week ago to find out, you know, they're bringing in consultants to figure out how to use their exhibit space. One of the things that struck me was that there were so many good ideas from people in the audience, and I learned new things myself about Erie's history. And I also was at the focus group on Monday for CAFE, which is the foundation that supports Celebrate Erie, and some other programs, and Aaron Lonke ran that focus group. And again, really good discussion. It was a small group. The discussions are confidential because it's gonna, you are free to speak with your ideas, but there were some great insights, in particular from some newcomers to Erie, stressing what our assets are, and how many people are coming to Erie and enjoying Erie. And then this is something else that I was part of, which is not really part of City Council, but we had a follow-up conversation yesterday at First Presbyterian Church of the Covenant on a group that got together thanks to Interchurch Ministries on race and film. And it was almost like all of these things that I was at had additional, had a common theme about the need to be inclusive, and the need to heal, and the need to value our diversity. So again, here's another thing that's not part of my city council hat, but I wanted to let people know, just on top of the new prospect for the Detroit Tigers having a complete game no-hitter the other day in Altoona, the Seawolves are back in town, and I think Casey Mize is supposed to pitch on Monday. This is generating a ton of buzz on Twitter. I can see people from Detroit are tweeting. In fact, one person tweeted and said, how can I convince my wife to take a vacation in Erie? So there's some good stuff that's going to come out about that. But also on Sunday, the Erie Seawolves are going to be known as the Erie Pinatas. This is part of a 5-game promotion. It's a national promotion with minor league baseball, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, called Copa de la Diversión, which means Fun Cup, and it's to celebrate the cultures and values that resonate with participating teams' local Hispanic and Latino communities. So it's another way to celebrate Erie's diversity, which is one of the core principles that the Synod administration has stressed over and over again. And also, when the mayor met with Monica Rhodes, who was here as the keynote speaker for Preservation Erie, it was really great to have the mayor say that right on the top. As soon as we started the discussion, this is what I want to achieve in Erie. We're celebrating our diversity. We are determined to eliminate racism in Erie. That was really cool. Last thing, well, maybe two last things. I'm always Googling. I just wanted to tell you about two things. We had somebody who said that and this is not this is not about the tax exemption of the convention center, but somebody came up here who said, I don't have the facts, and then claimed that there are no conventions at the convention center. And there are two that I'm aware of. One is the PA Downtown Center is coming here June 2nd through 5th. The theme is innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic vitality. And the Pennsylvania Library Association is going to be here in October. I only know about the library one because I'm on the library advisory board. And because of the downtown one, we're doing a lot of stuff with downtown. So that is not an inclusive list of things that are coming to Erie, but the Great Lakes Beach Glass Festival is also here this weekend.
Thank you, Les. Mr. Witherspoon. Thank you, Mr. President. Just two short things here. One, I'm concerned and going to be very active on this roundabout by PennDOT. I was at an event last night, and probably 5, 6 individuals talked to me about PennDOT and the problem it can cause based on the location where they want to put it. So I'll be watching that and attending whatever meetings are called on the roundabout. The other good news is that Gannon hired a new head basketball coach. I was there yesterday to greet him. A nice young man and his family. And he has a son at 16. We'll make sure he's registered for the summer basketball league. And I promise to get a hold of him once he gets settled and take him around the city to meet the mayor, to meet council, and other leaders in the community. And so that's my report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Shaw.
Good morning, everyone. Last night I went to the Gem City band concert, and they were awesome. It was just like watching the Erie Philharmonic, and they have a schedule. So if you have a chance, please hear them. They were totally awesome and amazing. Went to gallery night with friends and my hubby on Friday night, and I just love those. We have so much going on downtown on the weekends. It's just so fun to be out and about. That unfortunate incident that happened at the Culture Club happened at 3 o'clock in the morning, and nothing good happens after 2, I say. So, you know, Erie is a great place, and it's just a wonderful experience to be out and about. I did attend with Liz, the Erie, and Kaz, the Erie Historical Museum plans are up and going. Saturday, I went to East Middle School, and Edison Nicholson and Krista Lepak with Youth Leadership Institute put on a great Say It and Say It Loud Global Youth Service Day. They were awesome. They talked about the environment, hunger and nutrition, youth advocacy, recycling, civic responsibility. What a great group of kids. It was just a nice to be there. I was with them at their lunch. Boundless Nutrition just opened up last week, and they're at 727 Peach Street, and they have great nutritional drinks. And I was the honorary chairperson at the House of Mercy Tea, and Sister Michelle Schreck with the Sisters of Mercy, they do an awesome job at 2005 Woodlawn. Their house is open to the neighborhood and surrounding community. They do such wonderful work in that East Side Erie Buffalo Road corridor. Today is National Day of Prayer. I believe there's something going on at Perry Square. I think it's at 11 o'clock. They're going to be praying today. Today's the deadline for the Big Idea Startup, May 9th at 4 p.m. at Knowledge Center, Knowledge Park. They're going to be announcing their finalist announcements. And Liz, the fellow you were talking to was Peter Kageyama, and he was great about placemaking. There's going to be another person, Barbara Goldstein, coming May 13th from 6 to 7 at the Erie Art Museum. I am so fired up about the arts and the culture and the wonderful things that are free, and last night's concert was free at the Gem City. It was awesome. I see Mr. Nelson out, and he does a great service. Provided Easter dinner for my friend who had no place to go on Easter Sunday. Thank you for your services that you do with the Church of the Cross and making sure people get a meal on Sunday evenings. There is a ship that's out, but it's probably not there now. But if you go early in the morning, the RV Muskie is out, and they're a research ship. that is from the Ohio area, I believe, and they explore the health and biological organisms in Lake Erie. I saw them yesterday and today, and they go out. It's great being down by the dock because you get to see like the ships come in and out in the different places. So that's awesome. I'm still cheering on the HECA people. There was smoke reported there, I think last night at 7 p.m. From the Coke plant. So we still need to complain to the DEP to make sure that the Erie Coke plant is held accountable. I went to the Water Authority meeting last Thursday, and I want to thank all the people who are putting themselves out there to run for Erie City Council, because it really, as you can see from the people that come up at times, there's a lot of negativity out there. We try to post the positivity because really, Erie is a great place to raise your kids and family. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for all your positives, really. Ms. Arrington.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like to thank Jeremy, the new Executive Director of EMTA, for coming in and sharing the updates. I had the pleasure about 2 weeks ago visiting the new EMTA building, and it's a beautiful building. And I'm really looking forward for when everything is done so we can reap the benefits. So I would like to thank him for that. And also, I would like to thank the mayor and his administration for the monthly meetings, you know, that keeps us up on what's going on, and I really appreciate that very much. And the last thing that I want to talk about is I want to give my condolences to the family and the friends who lost a member of their family to the senseless violence that happened at the Culture Club. And we have a lot of violence still going on in the city of Erie. We don't hear about it enough, and we should hear about it enough, because we need to unite as a community to stop what's going on out there. And there's a lot of things out there that we don't see on the news, that we don't see in the newspaper, and it's going on. And it's a shame that the parents have to bury a child over senseless violence, like I did my son almost 10 years ago. It needs to stop, and in order for it to stop, we have to come together as a community. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just want to chime in on that. You know, there's about 75, 80 folks in this last incident. And when the police arrived, nobody's seen anything. And I just want to say to our public, don't blame our police department for not solving a crime within a time frame that you think they should if you don't give them any help. They need help. They need a starting point. A race doesn't start until you come out the starting blocks. And they need some place to start. They need some help. So stop complaining about our police department.
Yes, I was going to comment to, as Liz said, about a couple of the people out there that come here with comments that make no sense, but I'll take care of them in my own time, because I see them around town. But I mean, it gets frustrating when they make comments about state laws they don't understand, about the hotels. These hotels are in Allentown, they're in Philly, it's been done in other cities. As for the conventions being outside the city, I have no sympathy, okay? I don't remember the last time Mill Creek or Summit sent us a check from the gambling money or asked us for permission to open up a Giant Eagle or a Wegmans out there. So whatever we do, I have to think of what's best for this municipality that I represent, and that's a city. So if we have a few conventions that decided to come here, so be it. As for, you know, like I said, as for paying taxes, even if they were out in Summit or Mill Creek, how does that help us? We wouldn't get a dime of that tax anyway. The Port Authority, we made a comment about that. Wish the gentleman, the citizen would understand that the boat terminal building is not a boat terminal anymore. It's presently occupied by an actuary firm and by the Port Authority itself. Now, it could probably be repurposed, but, you know, they point out all the ships that are sailing the lakes. They've been sailing the lakes since I was the controller here, and they talked about it when they built that building, that they were gonna do something, but you know what? None of them ever came here. It's a market situation, and, you know, they're gonna go where they think they can make the money, and if that's Cleveland or Buffalo and not Erie, or not the Great Lakes at all, that's what's gonna be. We also attended the law seminar yesterday with the Knox Law Firm. It's a very good program for elected officials and members of authorities. It's very revealing on new laws that are coming in. Also attended the Airport Authority. They're turning it around slowly. They still have a few issues they gotta take care of. I'd like to personally thank, getting back to what Sonia said and Mel, I'd like to thank the Erie Police Department. I've been getting a few calls lately about the great job they've done over the last, not this year, a few years. They've closed a lot of cases. We all watched the other day when that young child, you know, that case got, I don't want to say too much because it's in litigation, but it was a great job by our police department, and I'm hoping, as Mel said, that citizens became involved, because it shows what the police department can do and has been doing. And I think that confidence only helps when they're dealing with the public. So I want to thank the chief. I'll thank him today, but his men and women did a great job. And when we sit here and we talk about overtime during the budget sessions, I think we have to keep that in mind, that, you know, if it's serving a good purpose like this obviously did, we have to consider that. Along with Liz and Kathy also attended the museum. And that was a very interesting, when you look at what's happening at that campus, it's really turned that neighborhood around. And I'm sure someday, I don't know if I'll be on council or we will, but they'll probably be coming back to us to expand that campus. And I think it's something we need to look at, because just walking outside with Mr. Dates, and he showed me how close the old canal basin was. These are things we don't push enough in Erie. I suggested to him maybe we should mark the street with a couple lines like they do in Berlin, where the Berlin Wall was, that people can actually see where the footprint of the canal was. I don't know where it was, and I lived there all my life. And finally to Liz, Liz, I wish the new picture a lot of greatness. I read a lot of newspapers from out of town over the internet, and I get them in person. We're generating a lot of interest, and that's good in AA ball. I will be for that young gentleman except for 2 occasions. One, and you know what those are. One when he plays Akron, and the other one when I'm sure he's gonna make when he makes the big time, I'll give him the same respect as an Indian fan that I gave Mr. Verlander. And the outfielder I saw last night, begins with a G. But
Curtis
Granderson. Yeah, I said, so, you know, if you see him and you know him, tell him I will be for his corner except for those 2 occasions.
I don't know, but I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to thank the mayor and his administration and team that we meet with on a regular basis for the updates and the information around LERTA, even to the transparency of the trip to Zibo, China, and all of the other component parts that we're working on. They are working on in conjunction with us and even on their own. The updates are very valuable. I had a meeting, kind of an impromptu meeting, and we're going to expand it out, and I'll bring more detail in our next session with Andy Zimmerman about several things that are changing in his office, code enforcement, in relation to the Panamation. There's some questions I have about some of the things that they're looking to expand with some new program or new updated version of Panamation that will do some of the things that hopefully we've been asking for to be able to do. So we'll get more detail on that and find out if that synchronizing of programs and departments will really be able to happen that way. excuse me, also the staff that are historically and have historically been in what we call the fishbowl out front have been moved upstairs as well. I think on one level it's really good from a security perspective and a comfort perspective for them, but I'm sure there's other multiple spill out benefits that come along with that as well. And we'll discuss that when Andy and I meet, and I can again report in more detail in relation to that. Chris Groner spoke with us briefly. There were some things in the media, et cetera, in relation to the home programming. We're going to get more update on that during our finance meeting, but as we work the nuances of that out, my thing is because that has to happen. And so once we work those things out, it would be great to make sure that we begin to market that appropriately and accurately and fully to the citizens, so they don't go to X community center that normally or historically has done home programs and remodeling and those types of programs through those centers or through those agencies. Bringing it in-house gives us an opportunity to have some more flexibility. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. Respectfully, I won't challenge because he knows his department, but I think it's going to be really difficult to keep that with 10 staff if we're going to do it effectively and do the marketing and all the component parts. But if it can work, I mean, we're always for doing, I hate the adage, but less with more, because sometimes you end up doing less and don't realize it. But if they can keep it concise and consolidate, I think that's great. So we want to do a lot of good marketing with that when the time comes that the city will be running the homes program for the city of Erie and not other organizations and agencies. Again, we do have a finance meeting after this. Looking forward to getting more details in a few areas connected to that meeting. We will be meeting with the police chief immediately and some of his staff immediately after the finance meeting as well, so we can kind of laud them in person, but also I think we might have lunch or something. We'll see. Oh, did I say that out loud? So I think that's important as well. In relation to community events, and there's always so many wonderful community events going on, I do want to acknowledge this one. This Sunday at 5 o'clock at the Family Worship Center on 12th and Parade, there is like a youth dance and music and arts explosion that's going to be happening. I'm going to be there. I know some other folks from the community will be there. It's a dance group called Our Praise, Our Way, which is like a liturgical dance group in the city, and they're bringing several other groups from other churches and ministries and programs and organizations together just to have a great celebration and positive community event. Again, we need to tout those positive things, because you can always find something negative to talk about. I will say this too, and I have to find another way to end this report. I'm talking about being positive, but I do want to briefly ask that we remember in our thoughts and prayers as well the family of the young man who lost his life. You all mentioned that, but what many of us don't know is that either the same day or like within 2 days, there was another family member lost, not to violence in that way, but that family's been kind of double punched and hit kind of a two-piece, as they say, with loss. So let's remember them in our thoughts and prayers as we move forward, in our times of worship, etc. And I think a good way to end this is that it's exciting to see that opportunities are happening. Whether it's with Julie Slomski being here, everything isn't going to happen in the moment. But I think if we're working with the governor's office, mayor's office, council, citizenry, and as a whole, that we can actually have some long-term success. Like, this isn't short-term stuff. This is long-term success. And we have to deal with some of the minutia of the process. But I think if we keep our eyes on the proverbial prize and whoever's in office, we should have the same agenda to make Erie better. I know that it will happen. Thank you, Mr. President. Right on cue.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Like Mr. Jones has mentioned, it's going to be a morning of meetings. From here, we're going to our finance meeting. One of the citizens was throwing out some numbers to us, maybe not in the most professional manner, but we will check with our finance guy and just see if any of these numbers are accurate or not. Also, meeting with the police chief, which we do as a council at least quarterly, and more or less it's to stay interactive with them, to see if there's anything we can do as a board or a council to help the police department with any tools or any other items they may need or may need to come through council to help them do their job and to keep everybody safe. I want to thank Sonia for having Jeremy Peterson in, the new executive director of the EMTA. One question I asked was about some bus passes for senior citizens, and I'm going to allot the rest of my time to Liz on this because she happens to have one of those passes, and I just don't know if the seniors in the city realize you can get free bus rides not only here in Erie, but abroad.
Not quite abroad, but in the rest of Pennsylvania. Yes, when you turn 65 and you qualify for Medicare, you can get a senior citizen bus pass. It's funded by the lottery. So it is good statewide for municipal transit systems. And when I was in Philadelphia, I think a year or two ago, I was able to use my pass to ride SEPTA from my friend's house into Center City. So you have to bring identification, I think picture ID to get your pass, but it is, it's one of the reasons I ride the bus, but by riding the bus, I also find out about other bus riders who aren't senior citizens yet. So some people on council said they didn't want to identify as senior citizens, but I have no qualms
That was me.
about saying that. Maybe it's just my female friends and I, but we're always talking about ways to save money these days, and this is a great way to save money. So I think I did mention Kaz. Kaz, you were out of the caucus when I said this, but you visit Allentown, so you get one of these, and
I didn't know that was good around
you
the
would
state.
be able to use the bus in Allentown. You can't use Greyhound, but you could use the municipal bus system and the subway system in Philadelphia.
How about-
If you take the train in Philadelphia, you have to pay $1.
How about the L, I'm just asking you, how about like the L in Chicago? Would that qualify?
The what?
Like the L in Chicago, the overhead?
Yeah.
That's
So
mainly for Pennsylvania, though?
it's for Pennsylvania, yeah. You can't use this.
Oh,
in
you
other
can't use
states.
another state,
No.
so, okay.
I would try, but
It'd be good in Pittsburgh on their subway though, correct, Al?
Oh, you get this at the EMTA office, and I'm not sure where the EMTA office is still on 14th. That's where I got mine. I wasn't sure if you could also get it at the intermodal,
It
so.
would be good on the subway in Pittsburgh though? Like if you're going
Yeah.
to the ball game?
Yeah,
Well, that's something that people should be,
yeah,
that's a bargain there, Jim.
yeah. So you learn something new every time you come to a council meeting, thanks to it was thanks to Sonia bringing in Jeremy, and then thanks to Jim mentioning this, so we're helping to educate the public too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I forgot that the Seawolves game on Saturday night is the first fireworks game of the season. So,
Come on out to the Seawolves.
yes, fireworks.
Thank you. Stankiewicz?
All right. I have a few updates. One, yesterday, for anybody that tuned in, we had a joint press conference with the county executive and the COG regarding the 2020 census. We just want to keep our residents updated on this, and we'll be posting on social media as well. But the census will be hiring 2,100 people locally in Erie County to help get the word out about the census and to make sure that everyone is counted. Those jobs are available now, and I will share the link online so that people can access that. The base salary is $16 an hour, so that's the minimum that you would be paid for those jobs. Also, the COG will be hiring an outreach coordinator. We realize how important it is to make sure that everyone is counted, because our federal allocation of dollars for instance, our CDBG funding relies on our population. And so the county contributed $25,000, the city contributed $10,000. We've applied to ECRA for a multi-municipal grant for $50,000, and then the surrounding municipalities are making donations based proportionally on their population, so that this outreach coordinator can work directly with the census to make sure that we count everybody in the county and in the city. It's crucial. What we found out yesterday was that for every resident that we don't count, we lose $2,100 in federal funding per year for those 10 years. So that's $21,000 per person. And we firmly believe that in the city, with the influx of immigrants and refugees that we've had, that we are much closer to 100,000 than our estimated numbers are showing, and we want to make sure we get as many of those counted as possible. The second item I just wanted to mention was the Historic Preservation Task Force. We've been meeting with members of council. We will be putting out a call to the community for anybody who's interested in serving on that task force. It's a 2-year stint to provide recommendations to the city regarding historic preservation. That will be posted on Facebook probably tomorrow. We'll be looking for architects, lawyers, realtors, developers, those kinds of folks who have worked in historic preservation to guide us. Third, I wanted to talk a little bit about the conventions. We've had more conventions come to Erie since the convention center and the hotels came into being, because we couldn't get those large-scale conventions previously because we didn't have the hotels connected to the convention centers. Liz mentioned the Great Lakes Beach Glass and Coastal Arts Festival is coming this Saturday and Sunday. Also, the Pennsylvania Professional Firefighters Conference is coming in a couple of weeks. So that's really exciting. Another event that's happening this weekend is the Erie Asian Festival from 11 to 6 at Rainbow Gardens on Saturday. That's going to be an exciting event we'll be talking about tomorrow at our press conference, another way to celebrate diversity in Erie. And then finally, regarding those increases in pay, I just wanted to provide a couple of clarifications that we talked about in caucus and you'll be talking more about in Finance Committee. The one increase was to our fire chief. We had our emergency management services coordinator retire. He was making just about $32,000 a year. Rather than replace that position, the fire chief took a bump in pay of $4,800 and assumed those responsibilities. So that was the one. The other incident was the city was in danger of losing about $300,000 in HUD funding for the home rehab and home buyers assistance program, because our recipients were not able to spend the money. That's very difficult money to disperse because prevailing wage kicks in once you spend over $24,999, and there were projects that had been planned and had to be pulled back because they couldn't get the project done for the allotted amount of funds. So we were in danger of losing that funding. Our Department of Economic and Community Development took a look at it. Rather than lose the funding, we will be deploying about $400,000 in home buyer assistance program and home repair programs for city residents. And we will be, of that HUD funding that we're gonna keep, we're gonna spend about $6,000 in administrative costs. Rather than hiring somebody to implement that program, we're just gonna keep it internal, as Curtis mentioned, with the 10 people that we have by redistributing some responsibilities. We think we'll be able to do that. And as a result, 98% of those funds from HUD will go directly to the community to benefit our residents. Thank you.
Mr. President, can I ask you one question? Sure. Renee,
Yes.
we have any input into who we hire for the census?
I mean, you can tell people to apply. We don't, you mean for the outreach coordinator for?
Well, no, what I was thinking of is when we go through the neighborhoods, I was talking with Mr. Jones, one of the big issues we
Right.
have is lack of trust with the government.
Right,
So I'm thinking if we can hire people make a concerted effort to get people from the neighborhoods that represent what we're looking at, and we know where we're undercounted.
right,
We're not undercounted in my area. We know exactly where we're undercounted. So if we use people from the community that reflect that community, I think it would go a lot better. I believe as you do.
Yes.
Because when I was on the school board, we had the right numbers. We can't use them because of legal issues, but they know how many kids are here that are, you know. and-
So the census hires folks directly, but what we can do is recruit people to apply.
And I think we should, really.
And that's where we really need to get the word out to our residents. And the census has actually a specific program for immigrants and refugees called Count Me In, where they're actually gonna be working also to recruit people who live in our neighborhoods to go to their neighborhoods to try to get the most accurate
I
count
think that'll
possible.
make it
So,
I think we'll
Please
get a
do.
lot better count that
Yes,
way.
Yes.
Mr. President, I would wanted to confirm what he said. He beat me to it. He always thinks he's faster than me anyway. But seriously, when you're looking at, we're doing outreach, there's some pretty set organizations and groups in town that will help to give a diverse and inclusive pool of people.
Yes.
Right? So whether it be the African American concerned clergy or this particular demographic group or this, Hispanic and Latino group, whatever it might be, there's probably some structured organizations or entities that can help kind of perpetuate that in diverse communities.
Definitely,
City.
yes. As part of the Complete Count Committee, which we announced yesterday,
Right.
we've invited all the executive directors of the community centers, the refugee resettlement agencies, the university presidents, because college students are typically undercounted. It's wherever you are on April 1st, 2020, that's where you're to be counted. So we historically have missed college students, we've historically missed children under 5, we've historically missed seniors, and then again, minorities, immigrants, and refugees have been undercounted. So we feel that this is a prime opportunity for us to make sure that we get as accurate a count as possible, so that the impact on our federal funding will be to the positive and not to the negative.
Attorney Betson.
Just briefly, LERTA, I had circulated a draft with a lot of gaps in it to the solicitors for the county executive, county council, and the school board, or the school district. I've received comments back from those solicitors, and I now have a document that I'm comfortable that is at least a rough draft that would be legal. My intent is to circulate that among each city council member, each county council member, and each school board member, as well as the solicitors. Then, once we have it, there can be changes made to it depending on, and there's different views. Not everyone is in agreement from the comments I have, but I have a pretty good framework and I've outlined the issues that need to be discussed. Once we have that, I think then the next step is to schedule public hearings. And I say hearings, the general consensus I got back from the groups were that the last meeting I mentioned I thought a joint public hearing made sense. That seems to be generally supported, but the thought was that there should be more than one. And so I don't decide that. Legally you have to have one, but if you want to have more than one, that may be a good idea. At least it seems to have the support of the other taxing bodies as well. Those hearings don't have to be joint, but it seems to make sense to me that they would be joint. So I'll be sending that out. Those hearings need to be scheduled pretty quick if we want to make this building season. And so I will be sending that out today, so you'll be getting it by email. Then we can have some hearings, we can decide what we want to fine tune it, and then we can enact it. So I'm pretty comfortable that we're ready to go. It's been a long process, but
Appreciate the efforts there. I know we're anxious as a council to get something moving ourselves.
so you'll have it today, as will county council and school board, and then we can go from there. Thank you.
Who's our special guest?
I'm sorry, yeah, this is Kathy Doyle, who's one of the assistant city solicitors, far brighter than I.
Well, I believe that's all.
Get the control.
Yeah, we got the control. Rose, we're at close it, okay?
All right, city council adjourns at 10:42 a.m. Mr. Winarski, Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Potowski, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Weisman.